What kind of vehicle do you need when your next adventure includes 7 kids? For Shane and Julie, the answer is a Thomas HDX, and it's massive. But the real challenge isn't finding a bus big enough for a family this size. It's figuring out how to turn all that empty space into something that actually works when they're out on the road. Shane and Julie from Florida have been building and documenting their adventures since 2011, including their very first bus conversion. So they already know what it takes to completely rethink the inside of a vehicle. But this time, the scale is completely different. Beds, seats, a kitchen, storage. Everything has to earn its place, and somehow, it all has to fit inside one bus without making life on the road feel impossible. And right now, none of it exists. It's just one massive, completely empty bus. Finding a big bus was only part of the search. Shane and Julie already had a pretty specific list: storage bays underneath, the engine in the rear, and something as close to 40 feet long as they could find. They even considered a coach, but in the end, a school bus made more sense. What they found was a 38-foot, 2005 Thomas HDX school bus with around 110,000 miles on it. And despite its size, the first drive came with a nice surprise. The air ride driver's seat and smooth ride made this enormous bus surprisingly comfortable on the road. Choosing the bus is one thing, making the inside work for a family this size is another. Julie had already started designing the layout, but the final plan would have to wait until they had exact measurements. The idea was to fit 2 sofas, a separate kitchen, and something especially important for a family traveling with 7 kids, a bed of their own for every child. Shane and Julie want more height inside, but they don't want the bus to look unnecessarily tall from the outside. A roof raise sounds simple enough. Remove the windows, cut the metal, lift the roof, and gain some extra headroom. The biggest risk in raising a roof this large is what it might do once it's no longer attached to the bus. That's why they build a guide system into the supports. Bolted channels give the roof a fixed path to travel, keeping it from sliding to either side as it rises. And when it finally reaches its new position, the difference is immediate. A huge bus now feels noticeably more open, with extra height that gives it far more freedom when they start building the interior. Raising the roof was a big job, but now they have much more space to work with as the build continues. Half an inch doesn't sound like much, but inside a bus, every bit of height counts. On their previous build, Shane and Julie put half-inch foam insulation under the plywood floor. This time, they're doing things differently. The plywood goes directly onto the original floor, while the insulation will eventually be sprayed underneath the bus. That saves a little space inside without giving up the plan to insulate it later. There's a reason the floor comes first. Almost everything they build inside this bus will eventually sit on top of it. The walls bring a completely different problem. They're still covered in bundles of wiring from the original bus. And this is the easy time to deal with it. For once, the next step in this build isn't decided by the plan, it's decided by the weather. Spray foam needs warm conditions to react properly, around 21 Celsius. So when the temperature finally gets there, Shane doesn't want to waste the opportunity. Spray foam works well in a bus because it can fill all those awkward spaces between the metal ribs, including areas that would be difficult to cover neatly with rigid insulation. A bus is basically a large metal shell. Without insulation between the outside and the living space, changes in temperature outside are much harder to keep from affecting the inside. An empty bus gives you plenty of room, until you start deciding where 10 people are actually going to sleep. The framing makes that challenge much easier to see. There's a master bedroom in the back with a queen-size bed. Then comes the bunk room with 6 separate beds and a small storage shelf for each one. They're also making room for a washer and dryer, and the bathroom is getting enough space for a shower, toilet, and sink. That's a lot to fit into one bus, which is why even the space under each bed matters. Instead of closing the space off, they build the bed so part of it can lift up. That gives them another storage area underneath. They insulate around it with batt insulation they already have, then fill the remaining gaps with spray foam. The bus floor is metal, so it can get hot or cold depending on the weather outside. And under a bed, that matters more than it seems. Every night they spend on the road, the insulation will help keep the sleeping area more comfortable. There's also one extra board under the bed that might look unnecessary. It isn't. Later, storage drawers will go here, and that board gives them a straight, level track to follow. When this many people are traveling together, you can't afford to waste the spaces nobody normally thinks about. Raising the roof was one challenge. Connecting it back to the original roof is another. The two sections now sit at different heights, and somehow the metal has to follow that new curve without buckling. One large sheet would be difficult to shape, so the transition is built from overlapping sections instead. Then there's the part they really don't want to discover during the first rainstorm, a bad seam. Water will run directly over this transition. The overlaps have to create a path that keeps water moving across the roof instead of finding its way inside. If they get it right, this complicated section should become something nobody even thinks about. And for a roof, that's a pretty good outcome. Eight new windows means 8 big holes cut into the bus, but there's a good reason for it. Each one will bring natural light into the rooms they're building inside. 4 windows are going into the bedroom. 2 more will light the living area, with another one in the kitchen and one in the bathroom. And their location isn't based on the bus's old layout anymore. It follows the new floor plan, so the windows end up exactly where the family will need them. 8 openings are already done. Just 1 remains on the driver's side. Once the windows are in, all those new rooms will finally get something they haven't had before: daylight. A paint job this big can completely change the bus in a few hours, but getting to that moment takes a lot longer. Before any color goes on, the exterior has to be prepared. The tires, windows, roof, and anything else that shouldn't get sprayed are covered. Then comes the primer. They're using an epoxy primer mixed with hardener at a 2-to-1 ratio. The first coat covers the old exterior and starts giving them one consistent surface to work with. A second coat follows, and by then, the yellow school bus is almost gone. Almost, because gray primer isn't the final look they have in mind. The final finish has to look even across a very large surface. On a vehicle this long, any uneven areas can become much easier to notice once the light starts reflecting across the side. That's also why all the preparation underneath matters. Paint can change the color, but it can't magically hide every problem below it. The cleaner and more consistent the surface is before spraying, the better chance the final finish has of looking even. And this bus gives them plenty of surface to cover. For the main body, they've chosen Fire Red Pearl, a metallic automotive paint that will look very different depending on how the light hits it. And the red is only one part of the plan. The roof will stay white. The windows and RV door will be black, and the side vents are planned to be white. So instead of making the entire bus one color, they're building the exterior around contrast. The paint needs to look even from one end to the other. That gets harder when the surface keeps changing. Long sides, curved sections, corners, areas around the windows. The goal is simple: one bus, one even finish. But keeping the finish consistent is a big part of the job. All that insulation did its job. Now it's time to hide it. They're covering the walls and ceiling with 1/4-inch birch plywood. And there's a good reason for going this thin. A bus has curves everywhere, especially overhead. Thinner plywood has enough flex to follow those shapes without adding too much weight. But bending it is only part of the job. There are wires hiding behind these panels. Some of them need to come back through for lights and other parts of the build. Cover the wrong wire, and getting it back later means opening the panel again. The ceiling makes things even harder. It isn't flat. Each sheet has to follow the curve and still meet the next one cleanly. Slow work, but it changes the inside fast. Those 8 holes in the bus are finally getting their windows. They're using dual pane RV windows, and that matters when this bus is going to spend so much time on the road. 2 panes of glass create an extra layer between the inside and whatever the weather is doing outside. But a good window still needs a good seal. Every opening has to keep rain from finding a way behind the frame. In a house, the windows stay still. These won't. The whole bus will shake and flex as it travels, so the seal has to handle life on the road too. Driving a 38-foot bus comes with one obvious problem. You can't see everything around you. The camera gives the driver a view directly behind the bus, covering an area that the mirrors can't always show clearly. And this is about more than easier parking. That extra view eliminates the blind spots. There's one thing every waste tank needs: a way to breathe. As waste enters the tank, air and gases need somewhere to go. The vent gives them a path through the plumbing system and out above the roof, instead of letting pressure and odors build up where they shouldn't. When the bus is moving, the airflow turns the vent in the right direction and helps pull odors out of the tank. At the same time, it keeps that moving air from blowing those odors back down into the plumbing system. It works the other way too. When the tank is emptied, air can move back into the system. That helps everything drain the way it's supposed to. And the reason the pipe ends on the roof is simple. Any gases coming from the waste tank are released outside, well away from the living area. The original bus door was built for picking up passengers. This one needs to work for family travel, and there's a safety reason for changing it too. The old bus-style door could be pushed open by hand, which isn't something you want with little kids traveling inside. The new RV door gives them a more secure entrance, along with keyless entry for everyday use. Now the build is getting into the smaller systems that will make life on the road much easier. One of them is the outdoor shower. It can come in handy for all kinds of things without bringing the mess inside. Then there's the heating system. Shane is running semi-rigid aluminum ducting under the base cabinets. Later, the warm air will reach the living space through this vent near the floor. Then there's the refrigerator, and it brings another problem: heat. A fridge gives off heat while it's running. In a house, that usually isn't something you think about. But inside a bus, you don't want that extra heat staying in the living space. So they add a vent directly above the refrigerator. Since hot air naturally rises, the vent gives it a way to escape through the roof. With 7 kids on the road, storage can disappear fast, so the space above the windows is too useful to leave empty. Upper cabinets give them more room for everyday things without taking up any floor space. But cabinets inside a bus are always moving. Every turn, bump, and stop puts stress on them, so they need to be firmly fixed in place. At the same time, there's another thing to think about: weight. With this many people sharing one bus, that balance matters. There's plenty to do inside the bus, so everyone has a job. While the kids sand the walls, Shane and Julie work on the bunks. And this is one place where strength really matters. For the bed rails and support ledges, they're using oak. It's a strong hardwood, which makes it a good choice. 7 beds, limited room, and a lot of miles ahead. Paint would completely hide the plywood. They want to keep some of that wood look. So for the walls and ceiling, they choose an antique white pickling stain. It makes the wood much lighter, but the grain is seen through it. The next part is about protection. 2 coats of polyurethane go over the stained plywood to give it a tougher surface and make it easier to clean. The grain stays visible, bright, natural, and ready for everyday use. Propane is one system where the details really matter. A 20-foot RV propane hose runs from the manifold underneath the bus to the propane tank mounted up front. The assembly has 5 separate outputs, giving them multiple connection points for the appliances that will need propane later. With the lights and air conditioning in place, the inside is getting closer to the finished look. Now, the cabinets need doors. Instead of buying ready-made ones, Shane makes his own flat panel doors from plywood. No bulky hardware on the front, the soft close hinges are hidden inside. That may sound like a small detail, but remember this bus is being built for a big family. These doors will be opened and closed a lot. A hot shower can fill the space with moisture fast, and without somewhere for it to go, that moisture can stay on the walls and ceiling. The new fan gives that damp air a quick way out. Small fan, small space. But it can make the bathroom much more comfortable to use on the road. With the bathroom vent finished, the work moves back down to the floor. They've chosen bamboo, tongue and groove flooring for the bus. Bamboo gives them the warm look of wood, but it's also known for being hard and durable, which matters in a space that will see a lot of foot traffic. The tongue and groove edges also help each board lock into the next. With 7 kids walking through this bus, durability isn't a bonus, it's a requirement. The appliances start filling the openings that were left for them from the beginning. And suddenly, the layout makes a lot more sense. This is especially important for a family this size. Cooking on the road isn't just about making a quick meal for 2 people. They need a kitchen that can handle everyday meals for a big family. When 7 kids are traveling with you, finding enough seats is only half the problem. You also need somewhere for everyone to eat, hang out, play a game, or sit down during the day, so this dinette with the benches has to work harder. Same space, different job every few hours. The dinette already has to handle a lot. Now the table gets a trick of its own. Instead of one solid top, Shane and Julie build it with 2 leaves. That means the table can open up when the family needs more room and then take up less space when they don't. But the clever part is underneath. The table posts fit into mounts recessed directly into the floor. After installing a range hood in the kitchen to give moisture a way out, Shane moves on to something that will create plenty of heat. A wood stove. A wood stove inside a bus might sound a little strange. But the stove itself isn't the hardest part. The real challenge is building a safe area around it, and the thin brick is a smart choice here. It gives them a real brick surface without the weight and bulk of full-size bricks. That's important when every inch of space matters, and there's no reason to add more weight than necessary. He also carries the same brick into a built-in box for firewood, then finishes the top with a quartz slab. But there's still one problem to solve. In a bus with a raised roof, a lot of that warm air can collect overhead while the floor stays cooler. So Shane adds a system to bring some of that heat back down. Vents near the ceiling collect the warm air, and a fan near the floor helps move it through ducting and back across the cabin. The dinette table is still just plywood. The epoxy is what changes that. Sounds easy, but there's a catch. Once the epoxy is down, pretty much anything can ruin the finish. Dust, dirt. So, keeping the surface clean while it cures is part of the challenge. A toilet may not be the most exciting part of the build, but the material they choose makes a real difference. Instead of a typical plastic RV toilet, Shane goes with a residential-style model with an elongated porcelain bowl. Porcelain is much less likely to hold stains than plastic, and it's easier to keep clean over time. That's a useful upgrade when one bathroom is going to get a lot of use on the road. The elongated bowl also gives it the shape and feel of a regular household toilet. A little less like camping, a lot easier to live with. A simple upgrade in the bathroom, he installs a stronger fan that can move more air in less time. The goal is to get the moisture out before it starts building up on the ceiling, walls, and windows. The chimney does more than carry smoke outside. It also helps the fire breathe. As hot gases rise through the pipe, they create the draft that pulls fresh air into the stove and keeps the fire burning properly. The Cubic Mini was originally designed for small spaces, which makes it an interesting choice for a bus like this. It takes up very little room, but a wood fire can still produce a surprising amount of heat. For something this small, it has a pretty big job. With solar power, the family doesn't need to plug the bus into an outside power source, but there's a limit. A few cloudy days can mean less energy coming in, while heavy use can drain the batteries faster. So it's all about balance, keeping an eye on how much power the panels produce and how much the family uses. Big projects like this are easy to notice, but a lot of the work happens in much smaller details. A trim piece that closes an awkward gap. A shelf added exactly where it's needed. A light placed in the right spot. None of these jobs looks impressive on its own, and some may barely be noticed once the bus is finished. Those little details add up. They make things easier to reach, easier to use, and more comfortable every day. And after months of building, this is where the bus really starts to feel finished. The big jobs create the space. The small ones make it work. For months, this bus was a family project. The kids were right there with Shane and Julie, and the family changed along with the bus. They started the build with 7 kids. Before it was over, they welcomed another baby into the family. So now there's one more little passenger coming along for the ride. The jobs are different, but the idea is simple. Work as a team. And this project says a lot about the family. They're not just building a bus they'll travel in together. They already know how to help each other and share the work. That same teamwork will matter on the road too. With a family this size, everyone has a part to play. The kids see their parents build, fix mistakes, find solutions, and help each other when a job gets difficult. And without anyone sitting them down to teach a lesson, they learn that when everyone does a little, a big job becomes possible. And for the kids, new adventures are probably the best part. The same bus they helped build can now take them somewhere they've never been before. To the coast, into the forest, or somewhere they haven't even thought of yet. There's no final destination for a bus like this. Just pick the next place, load up the bus, and go. If you enjoyed following this build, stick around. There are more projects coming. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and let us know in the comments what you'd like to see us cover next.